الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So normally what do we do when we begin? We begin with a review from last week. So who can tell us what it is?
Be on the shrouds and they put them over the top.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, now we can move on. Okay, now. Yes.
We talk about like the punishment of graves and like what happens.
We talked very briefly about the punishment of the grave. I don't think we did too much. Okay, I just want to quickly just recap some of the main things that are important for us to understand. By the way, when you see serious students who want to learn, okay, when you see serious students who want to learn, there are many people that come to classes, but there are very few who are there to actually retain what they are there to learn. Okay, most people come to hear stories. Okay, so if you want to remember this and if you want to get ahead, you might want to start taking some type of notes. You want to start taking some type of notes. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, we remember him for his memory with regards to hadith. But even Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he used to write the hadith later on, and in the middle of the night he would wake up, and part of the night he used to pray, and part of the night he used to review the hadith. Okay? So there's no doubt that Abu Hurairah remembered those ahadith. So they say that when you take notes, if you review them once when you go home, if you review them once the next day, and if you review them once the next week, you transfer whatever you put in those notes from your short-term memory into long-term memory. Okay? And long-term memory is very strong, and short-term memory is very weak. Okay? So your goal is to transfer the stuff that you're learning from your short-term to long-term. Like if you think about it, you cannot remember what you ate yesterday for breakfast. Okay? But you remember what was the first car you drove. Okay? You cannot remember what you were wearing yesterday. But you can remember, most likely, what you were wearing on your wedding day. Okay? If you got married more than a week ago. Huh?
You cannot remember the date of your wedding day.
You can't remember. We remember the date of the wedding except on that day. We don't remember it. So, yesterday, last week we talked about, number one, we talked about the importance of learning the fiqh of death. The importance of learning the fiqh of death. And we said that because death is very common, and all cultures and all people go through death, and we are around it. So if we don't learn the right way to deal with the dead, then we will automatically learn the wrong way by seeing other people, because we have to see them, right? We have to attend funerals of religious people and also non-religious people, right? We see it all around us. So if we don't learn the right way, then we will automatically, unwillingly learn the wrong way of dealing with the dead. And that's actually what has happened for most people, especially those who have lived in Muslim countries. The janazah is a very common affair. Once someone dies, the doors of that house do not close. Anyone can come in and anyone can go, right? And at that time, everyone just sees what other people are doing and they just continue to do stuff like that. So for example, the thing that we mentioned of some people having the practice that when someone dies, you wrap them in a shroud and you write the shahada on that shroud. Okay? Where did we learn this? The people who do this, they never attended a class where they said that write the shahada on the shroud. They never attended a class. Where did they learn this from?
They must have seen it somewhere.
They must have seen it somewhere. Okay, so they learned it from there, right? We also mentioned that some people, they would add a piece of paper into the shroud. And on that is an ayah which is called Ahad Nama, right? The ayah in which we have when Allah asked us, who is your Lord? And we said, you are. So they'll add it in there. No one who does it attended a class that told them how to do this, because there is no class that teaches them to do it. Okay? But where did they learn this from? Where did they learn this from? I've seen a janaza where someone was being shrouded, and one person had that little piece of paper ready to put in there. Okay? So another person who was there knew that this is not the right thing. So what that person did is that when the other person looked around here and there, they took that and they put it in their pocket to prevent them from doing that. Okay? And that person who wanted to put in there started almost going crazy that I can't find that piece of paper. Started going, like jumping around, like, oh my God, I can't find it. You know, that's exactly what I saw, right? So, you know, that person didn't attend any class to learn this. However, that person is so stubborn upon doing this. So it's important for us, that's why we need to learn this. And this is a class which actually needs to be repeated every year, every 2 years, it needs to be repeated. And there are some people, by the way, I actually called one brother when he received the message that I sent. This brother, he replied, for some reason maybe he couldn't read the text message or something, so he called me back, he said, you sent me a message. I said, yes, it was just a general message that I sent to everybody that says that we have a new class today which teaches us the fiqh of janazah. He said, oh, don't worry about that, brother. I attended at Masjid Furqan and I'm certified and this and that, and I don't need to do it again. I don't need to do it again, right? But if you just think about it, there are little details and we very easily forget little details, right? If you have a vacuum cleaner that got messed up and you open your vacuum cleaner up today and then you say, you know what, it's kind of late, so I'll put it back together in the morning. You come back in the morning and you don't remember where all of these screws go. You're like, how come I have like 4 extra screws? Right? That was just in one night. So what about something that you got certified for a year ago? So it never hurts to be reminded of it. The only person who remembers is someone, for example, who does janazah like every day. Every week he does it. So he basically reviews his notes in action every week. Okay, so this person doesn't need to attend the class. But most of us, we don't deal with the janazah every day. We may pray the janazah once in a while, but we don't deal with it every day. So it's important for us to spend time learning this. And the time that you're learning here, the time that you're sitting here, it is equivalent or better than for you to spend that time praying constantly. Okay, and think about this. How much difficult is it to continue to pray from Maghrib to Isha? But how easy it is to sit here, especially if the Imam tells you lots of good stories. Right? So while you're sitting here, there's lots of blessings of sitting in the halaqah. At the same time you're learning, at the same time you're doing ibadah. And I'll give you a little key that it might be difficult to wake up for tahajjud. And then when you do wake up for tahajjud, it might be difficult to continue to pray like the Sahaba used to pray. So to develop the habit, you can use a strategy to ease yourself into it until your body gets used to not sleeping at that time. And that is that you can wake up at that time and listen to some good lectures, good Islamic lectures, because that is ibadah as well. So you listen to that so that you kind of don't fall asleep. Until your body, you do it for a week, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, and then your body gets used to not sleeping at that time, then you can do anything at that time. Okay, so it's important for us to remember. Also, another key point that we mentioned was that it's important for us to work on our sincerity. Work on our sincerity in pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because at the time of janazah, the people are keen to please other people. Okay? Like for example, when it's a janazah time, then all the relatives come. All the old friends come. And at this time, although it's a case of death, you're also thinking everyone is watching what I'm doing. Right? And you might be tempted at that time and diverted into doing something for the sake of the people, and you might not do something which should be done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we also mentioned that we need to be careful about innovations for the same reason, that if we don't actively learn what is an innovation and what is not, what is a sunnah, then we might be doing and getting involved in innovations. So now we begin with today's lecture, which is the moment of death, the arrival of death. Actually, we begin with just a little bit before that. What should a person who is about to die, who knows that he's about to die, possibly, or for example, even someone who's about to have a major, for example, a heart operation, okay, where death is likely, it's possible, right? It's like a 50-50 chance. Actually, the brother who passed away yesterday, they are working on his janaza details. He was just having a major heart surgery. Okay, he was just having a major heart surgery, but his body couldn't handle it, and he passed away yesterday, right? That was the time of his death. That became the excuse, but it wasn't expected that he was just going to die like that. He wasn't sick or anything. He went for surgery, and they say that sometimes, complications happen in surgery. Sometimes you bleed a little too much. Sometimes you get a little bit too much anesthesia. Whatever the case may be. So when a person knows that he's about to die, or he's in a situation where it's possible that he might die. Like for example, can anyone give me a situation where a person knows that it's possible that he could die? Yeah.
He's in war.
If a person, not even in war, but before going to war, okay, before going to war, then he should do some of these things that we're going to talk about. Also, at the death, also someone who's going into surgery, major surgery, right? Also, a person who's going on a dangerous journey. Okay, let's say you are a journalist that covers war, right? So before you go there, although you're not going to fight there, you're going to be protected, but you're going in a war zone. So you better take care of your will and your amanat and stuff like that beforehand. So what should a person do in this case? Number one, a person should have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person should have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically, a person should be between the fear of the sins that he has done that might catch him and the hope for the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? However, the dominant thing should be hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? You might think that no, a person should be afraid, but the Prophet ﷺ said that have good thoughts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, we have all committed sins, so make tawbah for that constantly. At the same time, don't be so afraid and don't be so fearful that you think that there is no hope. Because to lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to walk into the hands of shaitan. Because the shaitan says that look, your sins are so great that you will never be forgiven by Allah. And because you will never be forgiven by Allah, then why do you have to live this miserable life and stay away from the things that you love to do? If you're going to be punished anyways, you might as well enjoy it. Go out kicking, right? So this is a trap from shaitan to lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should not lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should be fearful of our sins, but at the same time remain hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive. I'll tell you a story, and this is the story of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf was a general who was a ruthless general. He lived in the time of the Sahaba, but he was not a Sahabi. He was born after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. And he was a general in the Umayyad dynasty, right, in its early days. And what Hajjaj did is that he killed many, many companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? And Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, who was a great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, who was actually, he almost became the Khalifa. Okay? He almost became the Khalifa, that the majority of the Muslim world had come under his control, except Hajjaj and Hajjaj's leader, who was Marwan ibn al-Hakam. They basically started fighting him, and Hajjaj was a ruthless general, and he actually beat Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Okay? But how did they actually beat him? That Hajjaj actually laid a siege to Makkah, which was where Abdullah ibn Zubayr was. he laid siege to Mecca, and he used catapult in Mecca. Okay, do you know what catapult is? Catapult is like a cannon. Before firepower, gunpowder, they used to use rocks, and they used to use catapult to throw them in the place where they're attacking to kill lots of people, destroy houses, destroy buildings. So, I mean, this Hajjaj ibn Yusuf was a Muslim person. When it was time for Salah, he would lead the Salah. Okay? However, he laid siege to Mecca, and he did not care that the Kaaba is inside. And he used catapult to bomb and weaken the forces of Abdullah ibn Zubayr. And actually, as a result of his catapult, Kaaba was demolished. Okay, many of the rocks that he used, that he hit, they hit the Kaaba, and the Kaaba broke down. But this man did not stop, and eventually, Abdullah ibn Zubayr lost to him actually. And he not only he killed him, he actually crucified Abdullah ibn Zubayr to teach people a lesson. Okay, so Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he killed. This alone is a severe sin that he did. You're not supposed to fight in the Kaaba anyways. Okay, it's haram. You're not supposed to kill. You're not even supposed to break leaves off trees. Some of the companions, if their stuff would be sitting in the haram, in the boundaries of the haram, which is much bigger than Masjid al-Haram, if their stuff was there and birds came and sat down, they would wait until these birds flew off themselves, because they were afraid that by them to hurl these or hush these birds away might violate the sanctity of the haram. Okay, but this man did what he did. And then he killed many other companions. He killed many of the companions. So when he was about to die, so he's on his deathbed and all the people are sitting with him. He's a general, so there are people sitting there. Everyone knows what he has done. Even his supporters, they recognize the terrible killing that he has done in his life. So now they're just looking at him. They're like, oh, they're not saying anything, but they're thinking like, this guy's gonna get it. He's gonna get it. So Hajjaj, he looked at all of them and he could see what they're thinking, and he in front of them he said, "Oh Allah, I know that all of these people are thinking that your punishment is ready for me. However, oh Allah, show them how vast your mercy is. Show them how vast your mercy is." So what the other people they were saying, what did they say? They're like, oh my God. He said the magic words.
Yes.
He said the magic words. He said, Ya Allah, I know that my sins are a lot and these people they think that I will be punished, but Ya Allah, you show them how vast your mercy is. So, if this was sincere tawbah from him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy is indeed vast. Okay, and if this was just something that he was saying to the people, then this is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But point being that a person should make tawbah for his sins at the time of death and before that, but at the same time be hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive. There are many ahadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whoever meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without having committed shirk with him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him. Okay? If a person who is Muslim meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without having committed shirk of any type, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive his other sins. Okay, so we hope for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are protected from shirk. And if we have committed shirk, we should make tawbah. And every chance we get, make tawbah now. If you make tawbah now, everything that happened before is gone. If it's sincere tawbah. So we should be between the fear and hope. There was a young man who the Prophet ﷺ visited, and this man was about to die. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, "How do you feel?" He said, I have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I fear my sins. So where is he? He's between hope and he's between fear. So the Prophet ﷺ said that these two things do not combine in one person, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him what he hopes for and forgives him what he fears. Okay? So these two things do not combine except that Allah gives him the hope and protects him from what he fears. At the same time, a person should, and also the Prophet said, we should love to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that is only found in strong believers, that at the time of death, a person loves to meet Allah. Now when the Prophet said this, the Prophet said, whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet him. And whoever hates to meet Allah, Allah hates to meet him. So now the apparent meaning of this hadith, is that we should love to die. And we should hate to live. Okay, because basically meeting Allah means death. Okay? So when the Prophet ﷺ said this, Aisha radiallahu anha said, Ya Rasulullah, who amongst us does not hate death? We're all afraid of death. This is just human nature that we don't want to die. So he said, this is not what it means. This is not what it means. What it means is that when death is coming, a person is basically hopeful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he, when he sees the angels and he sees the angel of death, at this time he loves to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he knows that he believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this love at the time of our death. The second thing a person should do, or another thing a person should do, is a very important thing, is to return the rights of the people. Return the rights of the people. So amongst them, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever had oppressed his brother in his reputation or wealth, let him remedy that before judgment day comes. Before judgment day comes, right? And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ told us that the one who dies, that is his judgment day. Okay? The one whose death came, death is his judgment, right? His judgment basically begins now. So the Prophet said, if you hurt someone's reputation, or you hurt someone's wealth, right? If you hurt anyone in any way, then let him remedy that. Let him fix that now. Let him fix that now before judgment day comes. And then he explained, because on that day, what will be the currency? The currency on that day will be good deeds and bad deeds. Okay? You will have to pay good deeds to finish off whatever you have to give him. And if you don't have good deeds, then you have to take his bad deeds. Okay? So let us fix that before our time comes. Another important thing that a person needs to do is to work on and finish his instruction to the family and will. So firstly, let's talk about the will, right? Now, we gave a khutbah about that a few weeks ago, and this will is available at our website, and I am working on the revocable trust thing to make it a little bit legally more feasible. However, what everyone should do, you can download this form from the website mcosj.org and fill it out. In fact, now I had a brother work on it, that he made it PDF, fillable PDF. Okay, so you can go online, open up that form, and fill it up. Type, because writing it may be difficult, all the little details, but it's easier to do it on a computer. So you can go one by one, fill this form up, your information, who should take care of your affairs, who should be in charge of your janazah after you die. Who should lead your janazah? Who should lead your janazah, right? You might want to mention that. Which masjid should your janazah be taken to? Right? It's possible that one person, his family comes here, but he goes to a masjid in Philadelphia. Right? People in Philadelphia know him well, and they might make better dua for him, more quality dua for him, than people who don't know him. Right? So you want to be in the best hands. So this will covers all of these different questions. So you just have to fill it out. And what I do is that every year on my birthday, I open up my will and I update it. Because things change from year to year. Okay? Maybe the guy that I had put there to lead my janazah is not alive anymore. Okay? Or maybe I don't live in that city anymore, so he might not be available. So you go through and you update that. Also, this thing covers, for example, do you have any bank accounts that your family members don't know about? Right? So this will, you put it in there. You should put it in there, because what happens is that if a person dies, and they have not left behind a will, then the government automatically takes that money. Okay? So what would be a wise thing is that we have a will that someone from our family member knows about, and if a person dies, the first thing they should do is go to the bank and withdraw that money while you still have his credit card, right? Or his debit card. I mean, if you want the government to take it, then let them take it. But I think that you would want to have that money to use for his own janazah, right? So you want to let someone that you trust. You want to let someone that you trust have this. You want to let someone that you trust have this. Also, I'm sure that there might be some services online. I'm sure there are some companies where you can actually send them your will, and you can give, you can send them your will, which is like private, confidential information on it, and you can name certain people that they will contact them when you die, and they will make your will available to them. Right? So basically, you don't want confidential information to be known while you're still alive, right? Also, another thing you want to put there are your email addresses. Email address and your passwords. If you have a Facebook account, for example, you might need to put that there. Why? What benefit does it have of letting someone know? Yes?
To deactivate it?
Number one, to deactivate it, right? I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story that this one brother, what he had done, may Allah forgive him. This one brother, he signed up for a porn service, okay? And he would receive emails from them. And what he started doing is that he set up automatic forwarding to some of his friends, okay? And then this person died. And those friends of his, they were still receiving those emails. Okay? I mean, think about that. Huh? They keep coming and they keep getting forwarded. There's another benefit of knowing this information, or letting someone know this information, which is that there might be many of your friends and family members who are in contact with you through email and through your Facebook, for example. So it might be important to put that information there so that they can know about your janazah and come pray janazah over you. Right? I have actually told my wife that I have a big network of people and many of them are in contact with me in Facebook. So in case of my death, please do update my Facebook status. Imam Jawad died. His janazah will be in such and such place. Yes.
Take a selfie.
I'm serious about that. If he doesn't do it, you guys do it.
Take an afterlife selfie.
So you want to update the will. Now also there's another thing that the scholars have mentioned, which is that some of the scholars, they do not accept, or they may not accept, any changes which were done last minute. Any changes which were done last minute to the will. Like for example, let's say somebody has 2 wives, okay? And he has, or let's say somebody has children from one wife that might have died, and then he has children from them. It is possible that near the end of his life, when the new wife, the second wife, sees that this husband is about to die, she might pressure him and convince him to not give anything to his previous children at this time where his mind is not really there. Okay? So it's important that you put this stuff there beforehand while you're sane, while your mind is still there, so that none of these things can be done like this. And also, you might also want to put in a rule on your will that my will should not be updated except with such and such person as a witness to it. Okay, so there are different ways that you can protect depending on your situation. The least that you should have is that you should have this simple will that we have and fill it out. Fill it out. Also, we need to put in this will, as it says in that, is that my wealth should be distributed according to the Sharia, according to the Islamic law. You need to add bank accounts, passwords, and so on, so that your family could, take advantage of that money instead of the government taking that. Also, you might need to give instructions to your family on how to handle your janazah. Okay? So for example, there was a major sheikh by the name of Sheikh Albani, rahimahullah, and he had willed and he had advised his family and instructed them that when I die, do not publicly announce my death until I've already been buried. And bury me within hours. I should be buried, I should be washed, shrouded, and buried within 2 or 3 hours. So Sheikh Albani actually, he died like around Zohar time, and he was already buried by Asr time. Okay? And the people that prayed janazah over him were the people in his local masjid, basically, in that local area. Then they announced over the radio, because I mean, he was a big personality, right? People knew him all over. That's when they announced. So if that's something that you want to do, or you want to do the opposite, whatever you want to do, you want to put that in there, right? Someone may have family here and may have family in Virginia, okay? Now, is it allowed for a person to be buried in Virginia if they live here?
No.
Actually, what it is that it is allowed if for example, a person says his family is over there. As long as this transportation does not delay the janazah. It does not require embalming and stuff like that, right? So for example, Virginia is not a big distance. Okay, Virginia is not a big distance. In fact, sometimes, like for example, one brother that passed away last night, they're talking about his janazah on Sunday. Okay? In this time, if they were to transport him, there would be no difference basically, right? He's going to be delayed like 36, 48 hours anyways, so what's another 2-3 hours? Within those 36 hours or so, right? But generally, the janazah should be buried, it should be hurried, that's going to come later. Also, a person should take care of fulfilling his obligations after death. For example, debts, the important thing which we're going to talk about is debts. Any loans that you have, that's one of the most important things that you want to put in your will, that these loans need to be paid off. If you don't even leave behind money, the least that you need to do is you have to leave knowledge of these loans. That I owe money to such and such person. At least someone knows about it, right? Because let's say you die, that person didn't hear about your death, so he didn't come to your janazah. When the imam asked, is there anyone that he owes money to, he wasn't there to answer yes. Now this person is in his grave, and we will talk about what happens to a person who dies with debts on him. Also, you might want to tell your family that you love them, right? At least in your will at that time. Actually, there was a companion, Jabir radiallahu anh, when his father was going to battle of Uhud, he said he had a feeling, and he said that I expect to be the first of the companions to be killed tomorrow. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ had certain dreams, and Allahu Alam how he knew, but he felt that he was going to be, and he was right. Maybe he had had a dream as well. So he said to his son, he said, there is nothing that I'm leaving on this earth that is dearer to me than you. Okay? He told his son that. And he told him that after I die, then I have some such and such debts, take care of them. And also take care of your brothers and sisters. Okay? So what did Jabir radiallahu anh do? Jabir was a young man, and what he had done is that he got married to an older lady. He had gotten married to an older lady. So have you heard that hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said to a companion that why didn't you get married to a young girl so you would play with her and she would play with you? So it was said to Jabir radiallahu anh. Okay? And why did Jabir get married to an older lady? Yeah.
Because he knew he was gonna die. So like.
No, that was his father who was going to die.
There was a wealth. She was loaded.
No, she wasn't loaded. Actually, he said, I have young sisters.
So she can take care of it.
So I needed someone to take care of them. So he got married to an older lady, so she would take care of his young sisters. Also, what you want to take care of is any trust that you might have, right? Sometimes people will say, hey brother, can you hold my jewelry? Right? So you bring it home and you put it in your safe, but no one else knows about it that this is somebody else's jewelry except you. Okay? So you want to write that down. Remember when the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca and went to Medina, what did he do? he put Ali radiallahu anhu to sleep in his bed, and he told him he couldn't give the amanat that he had, the trust that he had before. Why? Because people would know that he's leaving. So he told Ali that this belongs to such and such person, and this belongs to such and such, and this belongs to such and such. So after I'm gone, return it to them. Okay? And subhanAllah, another thing is that the Quraysh, they used to fight the Prophet ﷺ, and they would oppose him, but at the same time they knew that he was such a trustworthy person that they would still bring their important stuff and they would say, can you keep it safe for us? Okay? And also, you might want to instruct your family about Hajj, for example. Right? If you haven't made Hajj, which is an obligation upon you, so you want to instruct your family to make it a priority to make Hajj if you did not do Hajj. Because you know the Prophet ﷺ said that Hajj is a debt that belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if your father or your mother did not pay it off, then it's your responsibility to relieve them of that debt. Okay? It's your responsibility to relieve them of that debt. Another thing, okay, so the next thing that we have is what to do if the person is dying in front of you. So this was what the person who himself is dying should do. So now you are there, this person is on his deathbed, so what should you do? Number one, and the most important thing perhaps, is that you have to instruct them, and not only instruct them, but command them to say the Shahada. Okay? Command them. This is called talqeen, which is basically, it's not just softly requesting them, but actually you kind of, almost you apply some gentle pressure to them to say the Shahada. Because whoever says the Shahada as the last thing, they're good. Okay? Whoever says the Shahada as the last thing, they're good. And if someone is on his deathbed and they say the Shahada, so tell them not to talk anymore. Keep quiet. Okay, you said the Shahada, now stay quiet. If they talk, then make them say the Shahada again. And then you can make them say again and again, but try to let it be the last thing that they say. Try to let it be the last thing that they say. The Prophet ﷺ was told about an Ansari man who was about to die. So the Prophet went to him, and he was an older man. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, he said, my uncle, say La ilaha illallah. Say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Some of the ahadith only mention La ilaha illallah. It seems that, it's better if they can say Muhammadur Rasulullah, but La ilaha illallah, Tawheed, is very important. Okay, so if they can only say some, then make them say La ilaha illallah. If they can say more, then make them say Muhammadur Rasulullah as well. So he was telling him to say the Shahada. So this man, so the Prophet said, oh my uncle, say La ilaha illallah. So this man, he said, am I your maternal uncle or paternal uncle? So the Prophet ﷺ said, you are my maternal uncle. Okay, because remember that the people of Medina were maternal relatives of the Prophet ﷺ. So, however, you can see that this man, his mind is not really there, that at the time of death he's more worried about how you're related to me than what you're telling me to do, right? He's saying that am I your maternal uncle or a paternal uncle? So the Prophet ﷺ told him, I'm your maternal uncle, and then he said, what you're telling me to do, is this good for me? He said, yes. The Prophet said, yes, so then he said the Shahada. Also, what you want to do, and also we know that the Prophet, actually the next thing that's coming next, okay, we'll come to that. Also, when you're there, you should make dua and say good things. You should make dua and say good things, because when the person is on his deathbed, then the angels are already there. Okay, the angels are already there. And who arrives later on? The angel of death, Malakul Maut. He arrives at the time of death. But the other angels are already there to take his soul. Okay, and the Prophet said that a person can see as far as the eye can see. They can see angels. So at this time, the person should make dua for that person. Make dua for that person, and also say good things. Say good things, because the angels are saying Ameen. Because angels say Ameen, but now the angels are there and they're saying Ameen. So say good things. Like for example, what would be An example of a good thing. Hmm? Okay. Okay, the Yasin will come to you actually. That's actually the next thing. Reminding them of Allah's mercy, telling them about Jannah, basically saying good things like, you are a good person, and like basically telling them if remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stuff like that, and making dua for them that may Allah have mercy on you, may Allah make it easy for you, may Allah, open up your grave if it is your time. Whatever good things you can say, because the angels are saying Ameen. The next thing is that at this time we need to avoid innovation. We need to avoid innovations, and amongst them, a top one is to recite Surah Yasin. Okay, so this is actually not based on an authentic hadith which says that recite Surah Yasin over your dead. Okay, this is not from an authentic hadith. So this is not. We see that the Prophet, like for example, the hadith I told you about the Ansari man, right? Did the Prophet say, okay, you know what, let me recite Surah Yasin on him? No. But he said, say La ilaha illallah, that's authentic. Okay? But he did not recite any part of the Quran, because this is not the time for that, and this is not based on any authentic hadith, right? What is best is to get them to say the Shahada. Get them to say the Shahada. Also, another common innovation, or a common practice which is not based on any hadith, is to turn the person to face the Qibla. Turn the person to face the Qibla. Basically, where these things come from is people applying their own logic. Okay, one of the great companions, one of the great Muslims and scholars, one of the leaders of the scholars in the entire Ummah, basically, his name was Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. And when it was time for his death and he was on his deathbed, there were people present near him, right? And he fainted. And one of the people that were there, he said that one of the people that were there said to him, turn his bed to face the Qibla. Turn his bed to face the Qibla. So they turned his bed to face the Qibla. So then he regained consciousness. And
So it was his head or feet face?
Okay, we're getting there. So I'm gonna come to your issue, okay? So his bed was turned to face the Qibla. So he regained consciousness and he noticed that his bed has been moved. So he said, have you moved my mattress? Have you moved me, basically? They said, yes, we turned you to face the Qibla. And then he looked at one of the people who was considered a knowledgeable person, and he said that this happened while you were standing here, meaning you should have stopped it. So he said, actually, I ordered them to do it. So he's like, turn me back, put me back where I was. So this shows that, this is not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, when it comes to facing the Qibla, facing the feet towards the Qibla, that's your question, that we know that this is not the right practice to turn the person towards the Qibla. But is it okay to face your feet towards the Qibla? Yes, this is a matter of respect. And some of the scholars have said that if you are in the haram, then you should avoid facing your feet towards the Kaaba. But if you're not there, then this is just a matter of your personal adab, your personal respect, right? And if someone doesn't do it, they're not doing anything haram. So there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, if a person cannot sit and they can only lay down, then some of the scholars have said that they should lay down with their feet towards the Qibla and pray that way with their head, basically, right? So they're laying down. This is the Qibla for them. So they're laying down and they're praying like this. Okay. So in this case, what are they doing? They're facing their feet towards the Qibla. Okay. So there's no matter of halal and haram in this. This is a matter of personal respect personal choice, right? If you want to do it, you can do it. The question is, should you teach your children this?
No.
You should not teach your children this. Why? Because many of us have learned this from our parents.
Correct.
And we start to think that because we learned it from our parents, it must be authentically Islamic. And we find it difficult to say, no, this can't be right. So if the children grow up and you teach them the respect of the Kaaba and you teach them, basically what does it mean to face your feet towards someone, right? In some cultures, this is a way to show disrespect, right? In some cultures, it doesn't matter. Right? In America, for example, it doesn't matter. People will go, they'll sit in front of the president and they will put their feet on the table towards the president. The president will say, you know what, I'll do the same to you, right? So, in this culture, it's not like that, but in other cultures, it is considered disrespect, right? So, you can teach them that, look, also, when your father is sitting there, your parents are sitting there, you should, if you want to kind of go the extra mile, don't put your feet towards them, right? Because our face is our honor, and we put our face in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the floor to show respect, right? So, we could all agree that that possibly the part of our body which is most exposed to dirt and filth and whatnot would be our feet, possibly, right? Because we walk on them, we walk through everywhere on them. So this is just a matter of personal respect. If you want, you can do that. But we should not look down upon other people who are doing that, and we should also not teach our children that this is part of Islam. If we want to teach them, we have to teach them carefully that, look, this in some cultures, this meaning is like this. So, if you feel comfortable, then don't do that. If you don't feel comfortable, then whatever. So it's important to teach them the right way. It's important to teach them the right way. Also, another common practice that some people do is that they will put the copy of the Quran next to that person. Okay? Once again, there is no proof for this from the Sunnah, and there is no benefit of this. If this person in his life was a companion of the Quran, then he doesn't need the copy of the Quran right now. And if in his life he was not a companion of the Quran, then you could, as I said earlier, that you could make his shroud from the Quran, but it would still not benefit him. It would still not benefit him. And then another thing is when it comes to non-Muslims, right? When it comes to non-Muslims, first of all, the question is, should you be at the deathbed of a non-Muslim at the time of his death?
Yes.
Who says yes? Raise your hand. Who says no? Raise your hand. Who says no? Yes? Only one. Why do you say no?
The Prophet said.
Because the Prophet said what?
لا تقم على جنازة أحد.
Okay, but this person hasn't died yet.
Yeah, it's
No.
Oh, it's died.
He died yet?
Huh?
He died.
He didn't die yet. No, he's on his deathbed.
I'm sorry.
If he's a close
So what about Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ? The Prophet was sitting next to him, right? Who else was sitting next to him? Abu Jahl, right? And the Prophet. So what should a person do if he's present at the non-Muslims at his deathbed? You should present Islam to him. You should present Islam to him and tell him that, look, become Muslim, this will save you. Basically give him da'wah as best as you can. You don't give him da'wah at this time the way you give da'wah to a living, walking person, right? But at this time you need to tell him that this is urgent and this will save you from the fire, and there's this and there's that. Try to make it dramatic at that time so that this person will say the Shahada. The Prophet ﷺ said to his uncle, he said, my uncle, just say this kalima once. Just say this kalima once so that I can argue on your behalf in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that I could advocate on you for you, right? But he was about to say, but Abu Jahl said what? Abu Jahl said, oh Abu Talib. So Abu Jahl is watching this, right? And Abu Jahl, by the way, Abu Jahl was a very smart man. Okay, he was very smart in the sense that he was very clever. The problem is that he did not use his cleverness for good, but he used it for evil. He was an evil genius. Okay? And the things that he came up with were really, smart strategies from his perspective, except that he lost in the biggest strategy, which is that he became the Fir'aun of this ummah and was condemned to hell, right? But Abu Jahl was sitting right there, and now Abu Jahl is playing a lineage game, okay? He is reminding, so Abu Talib maybe is thinking about saying the Shahada. So Abu Jahl sees that and he says, "Oh Abu Talib, are you going to leave the way of your father?" Okay? And now, who is his father? His father is Abdul Muttalib. And Abdul Muttalib was a very famous and legendary leader of the Arabs. Okay? So it's kind of like, it's a disgrace to Abdul Muttalib that his son left his religion on his deathbed. Okay? So he's reminding him of this feeling at this time. And he says, "Oh Abu Talib, are you going to leave the way of your father?" So then Abu Talib didn't say it, and then he died. And actually the Prophet ﷺ was very, very sad at this. He was not sad at the death of his uncle, but he was sad that he died without saying the Shahada. However, when he was sad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, right? That you do not guide the one that you love. Okay? So the guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at the same time, there are, in another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ, and you guide to the straight path. Okay? So how do we reconcile between the two? In one ayah, Allah is saying, وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ, that you guide to the straight path. And in the other ayah, he's saying, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, you do not guide the one whom you love. So how do you combine these two ayahs? Yes.
Prophet just conveys the message. Guidance in that sense.
Okay, so when it comes to hidayah, there are two types of hidayah. There's hidayatul irshad and hidayatul tawfiq. Okay, hidayatul irshad is to convey the message and to guide them, as if showing them directions. Okay, so for example, if a person, let's say we're going to janazah, right, and there's one man standing at the head of all the cars. So one person comes and tells you the directions, that you know what, you go here and you go here, you go here, you go here. So when you walk up to the next person and says, "Have you been guided?" You say, "Yes, I've been guided," meaning that I've been given directions. Okay? But then you can still get lost. You can still get lost if you don't follow them directions. Right? So the guidance of telling directions is our duty. It was the duty of the Prophet ﷺ, and after him it's our duty to give directions to people, to Jannah, to call them to Islam, this is called irshad, right? Hidayatul irshad, to tell them this is the right way, this is Islam. And then there is something called hidayatul tawfiq, which comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the tawfiq to act upon that guidance. Okay, this comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, for example, who knows that Islam is true? Iblis. Shaitan. Shaitan knows that Islam is the right religion. He knows it better than us. Right? He's seen stuff that we have not seen. But there is no tawfiq. He does not have the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus he has become the enemy of Islam and Muslims. Okay? So this is what the Prophet ﷺ was doing. He was giving him the direction, but Allah did not give Abu Talib the tawfiq to act upon it. Also, the Prophet ﷺ.
I have to tell you something.
Yes.
This is controversial, right? Abu Talib, he was mentally, maybe he was prepared to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. But
This is actually not controversial, except when people like to get emotional. There are some groups that said that it cannot be that anyone from the family of the Prophet could go to hellfire. Okay, but this goes straight in the face of many ahadith about this. Okay, there's number one, the ayah. Number two, the Prophet ﷺ says, that the least punishment in hellfire is the punishment that Abu Talib has, which is that the fire will reach only up to his ankles. Okay? And then also there's other hadith which actually is even more, that we don't have to discuss in detail, with regards to the parents of the Prophet ﷺ, with regards to the father of the Prophet ﷺ, that one man came and he said that, Ya Rasulullah, where is my father? So the Prophet said, your father is in the fire. So this man became upset and he was crying and he left. And then the Prophet called him and sent someone, he said, go and tell him that his father and my father are both there. Okay? So now some of the scholars, they have done something which they are not supposed to do. They have done ijtihad on an issue where evidence is there. Okay, so there is a hadith, authentic hadith, so we're not supposed to try to figure out, a way to work it out. So some of the scholars, they say, no. The Prophet's parents died before Islam, because the Prophet was 40 years old when he received the first revelation, so they cannot be held accountable. So thus, Allah will test them on the day of judgment, including Abu Talib and whatnot, that Allah will test them on the day of judgment. Yes?
Isn't that what he told his uncle when his father died, when Abu Jahl told him that he would be buried with his, he said, go back and ask him, where would he be? He said, your father was dead like my father.
That was actually right after Abu Talib. Right after Abu Talib, Abu Lahab became the leader of the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ obviously needed his protection to have the protection of the tribe, and Abu Lahab was the leader. So, he was convinced to let the Prophet ﷺ have the protection, but then Abu Jahl told Abu Lahab that you are a fool. Why are you giving him protection? Why don't you ask him, tell him what he thinks, that where is your father, meaning the grandfather of the Prophet, Abdul Muttalib. Ask him where he thinks that your father is. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave him a diplomatic answer, which is a true answer. He said, what do you say about Abdul Muttalib? So the Prophet ﷺ said, he is with his people. Okay? So Abu Lahab came, he said, okay, he's with his people, that's fine. He came back, so Abu Jahl said, what did he say? He said, he's with his people. He said, you are indeed a fool. What does he say about his people? That they're all in hell. Right? So that's what he's saying about your father as well. So then Abu Lahab became enraged and he said, there's no protection for you. And that's when the Prophet went to Ta'if and whatnot. So that's another lengthier discussion. Let me just get through this stuff real quick. The Prophet ﷺ visited a young Jewish boy and also invited him to Islam, and this boy also accepted. Now moment of death came, and this person just, you can see that his soul has now left him. His heart has stopped, his, whatever happened. So now he's dead. So now what do you do as you are the person who's there next to him? The first thing is, the eyes may be left open. Right, and it's a very common thing. So we are supposed to close their eyes. We're supposed to close their eyes. The Prophet ﷺ was informed that Abu Salama radiallahu anh has passed away. So the Prophet ﷺ went and his eyes were open. His eyes were open and they were looking up. So the Prophet ﷺ, that time he said that indeed the eyesight follows the ruh when it goes. Okay, so when the ruh is taken out, right? The angels may take it this direction, that direction, whichever direction it goes in, the eyesight follows them. Okay? So whichever way the person was looking, sometimes they're looking here, sometimes they're looking there, that means this is the way the soul went. Okay? So then you close their eyes. You close their eyes. Also, at this time, a person should make dua for them, because this is a time of acceptance of dua. Okay, because the Prophet ﷺ said at this time when Abu Salama died and he closed his eyes, he said, make dua for him. He said, make dua and don't say anything bad, because the angels will endorse what you are saying. If you make bad dua, then the angels will say Ameen. If you make good dua, then the angels will say Ameen. So make good dua. and the Prophet himself made dua for Abu Salama, and also he made dua for himself and the people around him. Okay, so this shows that this is a time that we should make dua for the person who died and also for our own selves. For our own selves. The next thing that a person should do is that we should cover their entire body with a sheet. We should cover their entire body from head to toe with a sheet. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And in fact, when the Prophet ﷺ himself passed away, he was not buried immediately, as you know. So we'll talk about in the later chapters. They covered his entire body with a sheet. They covered his entire body with a sheet. This is something that happens to be common. This is something that happens to be common in all cultures. From as far as I know, they cover someone with a full sheet. The next thing after that is that a person's burial should be hurried. A funeral and everything with it should be hurried, and it should not be delayed unless there's a reason for it. It should not be delayed unless there's a reason for it. Many people think that hurry in regards to funeral applies to when you're carrying the casket or the person to the graveyard. So I don't know how many of you have attended a janazah, for example, in Medina, but you have to run to keep up with it. Okay? You have to run to keep up with the janazah, they go so fast. Okay? But it doesn't only apply to that time, it applies to throughout the whole process. It applies to the whole process. The time should not be wasted. It should be done quick. It should be done quick. In fact, you know that some of the companions, they would be buried, and they would be buried within the same night. They would be buried within the same night. And we have the famous hadith of that lady who used to clean the masjid. She had died, and then she was buried during the night, right? So it should be hurried. It should be hurried as much as possible. And obviously, unless there's a reason for it. So for example, living in America, everything works in business hours. Okay? So the funeral home doesn't work after 5 o'clock. The cemetery does not work after 5 o'clock. Right? Do you know that? That the cemetery, they only dig graves and they only allow burials between basically a certain time. And I don't think they start at 9 o'clock. They start like maybe 11 o'clock or something like that. From 11 to 5 they have burial time or something like that, right? Also, do you know that in the cemeteries, if you bury on the weekend, then they charge more money for it. Okay? So, for example, if a janazah is on Sunday, especially Sunday, then they actually charge $500 more. They charge $500 more. So now the question is, a quick question, is it allowed to delay the janazah to Monday to save the $500?
What if it's a financial issue?
Yes.
It probably
They
depends
can-
on your financial situation, but if it's the first day, maybe second day to do it. I don't think it should work more
Okay.
than 2
Yeah.
days or 3 days.
If people they can fundraise the 500 as soon as possible, they
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Wouldn't it depend on the person's, the family's financial aspect?
Yeah, so it would basically depend on their financial ability, right? For example, we had a janazah where this was exactly the case, where this person and his family did not have any money for the janazah, right? And then, so there was a fundraising already happening for the basic expenses, basic cost. And then on top of that, it was $500 more if the burial was supposed to be for on a Sunday. So I actually called up some of my teachers and I consulted them on it, and they said that that is a legitimate cost. That is a legitimate cause to delay. Okay? So remember, delay should not be done unless there's a legitimate cause for it. Okay? So financial ability is a legitimate cause. Okay? So if that's the reason, then it can be delayed. It can be delayed until the next day. Another thing is that a person should be buried near the place of his death as much as possible. Right? Near the place of his death. If not, then it should be to the closest place that they can. So for example, Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr, he died in a place called Al-Habashi, Habashi or Habashi, not Habasha, Habashi or Habashi. And this place was a little place 12 miles from Mecca. 12 miles from Mecca. 12 miles is what? It's our shopping mall, right? So he was transported from that place to Mecca and buried there. So when Aisha radiallahu anha went, she said that it disturbs me that he was not buried where he died. Okay, so 12 miles disturbed her. And this is Aisha radiallahu anha, who was one of the greatest scholars amongst the Sahaba, one of the top scholars and knowledgeable people amongst the Sahaba. And Nawawi, rahimahullah, he said, it is forbidden to go to another land. It is forbidden to go to another land. And he said, even if a person willed it, then it should not be obeyed. So if a person says that bury me in Pakistan, okay, and this obviously causes extreme delay, and it causes embalming and this and that. So this person's will should not be obeyed in this case. Yes.
I don't know if this issue came up before, but I think I was reading somewhere, some of the scholars different when it comes to that, because it said like the person being buried is responsibility for the grave site to be kept up, and that if there's no one in that particular area that's a family member, that should be buried with family members. So
right. So basically what it goes back to is number one, is that he should be buried as close to the place that he died. He can be moved to a different place if there is some legitimate cause for it, legitimate reason for it, right? So for example, some of the legitimate reasons are, number one, an absence of a Muslim cemetery. Okay? So if someone dies in a place where there is no Muslim cemetery, then he can be transported to the nearest Muslim cemetery, even if that nearest Muslim cemetery is very far. Okay? Let's say America did not have any Muslim cemeteries. In that case, he can be transported to the nearest Muslim place that they can go to, right? Now, in that case, if he's being transported, then, for example, the nearest Muslim cemetery is, for example, in England, right? Can he be transported to Pakistan in that case? Well, he can be, because the process of taking him to England and Pakistan only differs in hours, in terms of, because you're going to do the whole thing anyway. So in that case, you can, legitimately, you can take him over there. Another reason is that, let's say the person's family wishes that they be buried close to them. And as long as there is no undue delay in it, right? There's no undue delay in it. Like, for example, let's say someone's family lives in Australia. Okay, and they say we want him to be buried in Australia, but let's say like back in the days where you had to travel through ship, right? And it would take maybe like 3 months on a ship to get to Australia. So in this case, this is not something legitimate because the body will decay. Okay? But if it will not take that type of time, it will be quick and the body will not start to decay in that time, and there is a reason, for example, family being there, then he can be transported. The problem nowadays is another problem, which is that the law here requires that if someone wants to be transported, that he needs to be embalmed. Okay? And someone was telling me that even some of the states require that if a body crosses their state line, they need to be embalmed. Right? So for example, someone lives in Pennsylvania, I don't know if this applies in Pennsylvania, but just for an example, that Pennsylvania may have a law that says, look, if you want to go into New Jersey, the body has to be embalmed. Okay? So in that case, you want to try to avoid that embalming, because we mentioned that embalming is, what does embalming do? How is embalming done? They basically cut open the chest and they plug in a vacuum over there. And everything that is soft, like blood and tissue and whatever, gets sucked out. Okay? And they have another tool which they put in, and with this tool they crush his internal organs like heart and lungs and whatever is soft inside, they crush it with this tool, and then it gets sucked out. Like milkshake, chunky milkshake, right? Chunky, where sometimes they drink mango milkshake and like pieces of mango are coming in your mouth. So that's what they do with the person's heart and lungs and things like that. It's a very bad thing, and it should not be done unless absolutely necessary, right? So if that is required, then that person should not be transported. It should not be transported.
Sheikh, one question.
Yes.
Because this country has done the Muslim grade is within the Christian grade.
Yes, as long as it's a separate section, that's okay. Because, we have to understand, we have to live in reality. We can't afford to have a cemetery all by ourselves, okay? There are lots of rules, there are lots of regulations, there's lots of, chemicals and, they have to be in certain area. Right, for example, if I bought this park right across the street and I said, okay, I'm going to make a graveyard, do you think that would be okay? It would not be okay, right? Because what is in a graveyard, if it's not done properly, then the dead body, there's lots of, harmful stuff coming out of the body. Right? So if it's not taken care of properly, then it will harm the people who are living. That's why in cases of, for example, Ebola, right? In Ebola, they were actually cremating the bodies. There were no funerals, okay? I don't know if it's still happening, but when it was really high, so whoever died from Ebola, they did not bury them. They did not wash them. They actually burned them. Because the harm in this case to the living was too great. Okay? And this is acceptable in Islam, by the way. This is acceptable in Islam because the priority is the living. The priority are the people who are still alive. Okay? So if taking care of the dead will harm the living, then you don't take care of them in everything that you can do. You do it as best as you can. As best as you can. And just lastly, very quickly, is that when a person has died, their debts need to be taken care of. Their debts need to be taken care of. So anyone who owes money, number one, you need to pay them off. If you can't pay them off, you need to start working on paying them off. If you can't start working on paying them off, you need to at least make a deal with the person who lent you this money that, look, if I die, please forgive me. If he doesn't agree, okay, then you need to do at least, actually what you should do anyways, is you should inform someone from your family, from your friend, that I owe money to such and such person and it's this much money. I'm trying to pay it off, but if I can't pay it off, you pay it off for me. Okay? Now what happened, the Prophet ﷺ, one day, there was a janazah, and the Prophet ﷺ went and he prayed that janazah. When the janazah finished, when he prayed the janazah over him, the Prophet ﷺ, he sensed something. So he looked around and he said, is there a family member of this person? So no one answered. He said again, is there a family member of this person? So no one answered. He said a third time, he said, is there a family member of this person? So then one guy in the back said, here I am, here I am. So then he came through the lines and the Prophet ﷺ said, what prevented you from coming the first two times that I was asking? Right? I was not calling you except for something good. Except for something good. So the Prophet ﷺ said, perhaps your man here, not perhaps, he said, your family member is restrained by his debt. Okay? He's being tied up because of his debt. So if you wish to free him, then pay it off. And if you wish, surrender him to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Meaning that his punishment has already started. His punishment has already started. So if you wish, free him from that punishment and pay off that debt. And if you wish, just leave him to burn. Okay? So the narrator, he said, you could see his family hurrying to pay off his debt. There was another companion who had another companion who had died. And the Prophet ﷺ went to pray his janazah. And just when he kind of got close to it, he said, the Prophet ﷺ could see things by the will of Allah, what we could not see. Okay? So he saw something, and he said that this man is restrained by his debt. So, is there anyone amongst you who will pay off his debt? So one of the companions, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I will pay it off. I will pay it off. So then the Prophet prayed his janazah. So the Prophet ﷺ, after a little while, he said, he called up that same person who volunteered. He said, have you paid off that debt? He said, Ya Rasulullah, he just died. So the Prophet called him the next day. He said, have you paid off his debt? He said, no, I didn't get a chance to. He called him the second day. Again, he said, I didn't get a chance to yet. The third day, the Prophet said, have you paid off his debt? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have paid it off. He said, only now his body has cooled down. Only now his body has cooled down that you paid off. What? That he was already burning. He was already burning because of that debt. Okay? And now that you paid off, now his body is cooling down. So my dear brothers and sisters, be very careful about your debt, about your loans that you need to pay off. You need to pay them off while you're still alive. And at the same time, don't be in a hurry to ask for a loan. Because a loan is, you're basically putting a rope around your own neck, right? You could get tied up in it. So try to avoid taking a loan if you can. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just the nature of man that when we need it, we are like, brother, please give me, brother. And then when we get it, then we relax, right? Then we relax about it. We cool down about it. So try to avoid taking loans. That's my own personal philosophy, that I try not to take any loans, right? If I do, try to pay it off real quick. But if you do take it, then at least, number one, be very sincere about paying it off and make it a priority. And also inform someone, your children, your wife, that look, here's a list of the people that I owe money to. In case of my death, the first thing that should be done, in fact, the scholars have said, should the person's funeral expenses should be taken from his wealth first, or should his debts be taken first? His loan should be paid off first from his money, right? That is the number one priority. Then you take for his funeral expenses. If you can only do one, you pay off his debt loans, and then you can fundraise from the people to pay for his funeral expenses, right? Now, if someone dies and he owes someone some money, is the Islamic State responsible for paying off his loan? And in our case, is the masjid responsible for paying off his loan? Is it a moral obligation that if we have money, we should pay off his loan?
Someone comfort was someone intentionally come and pay off his loan.
Okay, actually that's the key right there. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Then whoever has a loan and he tried to pay it off but was not able to, then I am his sponsor. Okay? However, whoever does not have an intention to pay off his loan, then that is between him and Allah, and he will pay with his good deeds. He will pay with his good deeds, and he will take the other person's bad deeds, right? So, just like that if somebody came here and they said, look, can the masjid pay off this person's loan because he might be punished? We would say, well, let's see his record. Was he trying to pay it off while he was alive? Or was he buying the newest sneakers and the Apple Watch and the iPhone 6 Plus while he was not paying off his loan? Okay, in that case, we'll say, you are the family, you take care of him. If you want to free him, you free him. And if you don't want to free him, you surrender him to the punishment of Allah, right? Because we have other people that have more important things that we need to take care of. If you are irresponsible yourself for your own obligations, then don't expect someone else to be responsible for your obligations. This is just a general rule, right? Yes, brother.
Is this loan applicable only for the person? Like, let's say for you.
Banks, credit cards.
I'm talking about like you took a Sharia compliance loan for the house, and that amount, you pay for like 15, 20 years,
Yes.
and you die, and community or somebody else will not be able to pay those loans. What's the thing about that?
Any type of personal loans need to be paid off. Personal loans should be paid off for sure. Now, with regards to house loans and stuff like that, Sharia compliant loans, right? We're not talking about the other, which is haram to begin with. So, if you look carefully in your contracts, there is something in there usually that what happens in case of your death. Okay, what happens in case of your death, that they will offer someone to either take over the loan, they will offer like a family member to take over the loan, or they will take the property back and the loan will be cleared basically.
that.
Huh?
See for the assets.
You have, what's the answer?
The answer is husband-wife is a state law. If you buy the house,
Wife will
is
all
both,
right.
yeah, both names.
Both names, yes.
So both not gonna die together. Both
Yes.
gonna die
Yes.
So,
So basically, you know, the same thing, responsibility to the next of kin goes on.
There is a law here, if you have a mortgage in a house and you died, the insurance you are paying for through the years, it will pay everything that you have not paid. Is that acceptable?
Oh, really? Does that really happen? Maybe a person should die in the first year of his 30-year mortgage and then have the insurance paid off the rest.
It's happening.
I'm not joking about this.
Yeah,
You have a house and you paid until your death, but was there, say, $50,000 left.
yes,
The insurance are obligated to pay.
okay,
And I know some people had that. Somebody had over $100,000 in his house, he died, and the insurance paid for it. So that was for his family. But if this is acceptable in Islam, that's really risk of his death. That's what I'm asking.
I don't know about that. I would have to ask someone, this question is above my pay grade.
And this is
I have to ask
also-
my teacher.
This is also mixed up with interest and all that.
I mean, we're not even talking about interest here. Interest is fire. Interest is fire, and we have to answer for that in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we're talking about halal loans here. Whatever is haram, that is haram to begin with. So that is something that we need to get out of as soon as possible. We need to get out of as soon as possible. So we will end here because we are about 15 minutes over for our salah time. So inshallah, we'll continue next week. And next week we'll talk about what comes next. Yes. Yes.
Now, I don't know if you know it or not, those who got credit cards, you got this thing now where they have a zero interest loan.
Yes.
But, you know, I think the interest is attached to the loan, but is that cool? I mean,
The answer is what?
I'm saying, they say it's a zero interest loan.
Yes.
Is that good?
So is that good? Okay, so this is a question that is not related to the class.
Huh?
And it's a controversial question.
But there is no haram in it. It's integral. We are not charging you anything. Zero.
Okay.
Zero.
How many people want the answer to this question? Raise your hand if you want to hear. Is it okay to have 0% interest credit cards?
There is no such type of eventually you're gonna get 20% or 22%.
Okay, so are you allowed to have a credit card which has a 12-month or 18-month zero interest loan? Or even for that matter, can you have a credit card which you pay on time? Right? You pay on time without paying interest. So this is a slippery slope. This is a slippery slope. However, the scholars, not the scholars who are back home, right? Many of them, they say, no, this is haram. But at the same time, they also don't understand the situation and the way things work in America. Okay, and in America, having a credit is almost, I'm pretty sure that I could say that having credit in America is a case of necessity. It's important, right? When you rent a house, they check your credit, right? There are many things that they check your credit on, whether you have a loan or not. They check, whether you pay on time or stuff like that.
They check your credit.
They check your credit at a job. Everywhere. So it is. So the scholars have said, in that case, it is okay, but you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very careful. And look, the credit card companies are not stupid.
Yeah.
Okay? They know that even when they give you 5 years no interest, they still expect to make money from you. How do they make money from you? Number one, they make money by charging you late fees. Late fees is also interest, right? So if you have a card, even with a no interest, they still charge you late fees. So you have to make sure that you pay everything on time. You have to pay, even within the no interest period, you have to pay the monthly minimum. If you're not paying more than that, you have to pay it on time. Also, some of the scholars, they have said the safer opinion, which is, according to them, that even when you're taking a zero interest card, you're still signing that if I am late, I will pay interest. Okay, but others have said that if you're not dealing in interest, then it's okay. Wallahu a'lam, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. This is just something that is kind of, we are almost in this situation because of the country that we chose to live in. Okay? And living here is not an excuse to deal in haram. If you can't protect yourself from dealing in haram because you're living in America and you're saying, well, we live in America and we have to do it, then you need to leave America. Okay, then you need to leave America. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Inshallah, we'll pray after the adhan.